First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out today as we talk about completion of the 5-year Farm Bill. It's important to understand the importance of agriculture to Oregon and to our district. It's a $5.4 billion industry for our state, and it creates hundreds of thousands of jobs. Having spent my early years growing up on a cherry orchard in our district in the Dalles, I know how important it is to have a safety net for farmers and ranchers all across our part of the country. And yet in this climate of deficits, it's also important to get reforms, and we got those in this Farm Bill and reduced its cost by more than $16 billion over the 5-year length of the bill. And I'll talk about some of those reforms in a minute. When you think about the importance of agriculture right here in Jackson County, Josephine County, Klamath County. Klamath County alone is a $290 million piece of business. In Jackson County, it's upwards of $66 million in farm and ranch income, and in Josephine County, $21 million. And that's gross farm sales from 2012. This is a big part of our economy, and for several years now, I've heard from farmers and ranchers about the need to get a farm bill done in a way that works as a safety net for agriculture, that continues with our important ag research, and provides the kind of disaster relief and all that the industries need. In addition, we did reduce waste and fraud as recommended by the Government Accountability Office when it comes to the food stamp program. We're going to ensure that benefits aren't going to lottery winners, which they were, and instead are being received by those who are truly eligible and need the assistance most. And in addition, we take some of the savings out of the waste and fraud and put it into our community food banks, who really are doing a terrific job serving our people who are suffering. This legislation consolidates duplicative programs, it cuts red tape, and it saves tax dollars. Now, whether it's the delicious Royal Riviera pears that are shipped across the country by Harry and David, or sought-after Rogue Valley wine or cheese in Southern Oregon, we understand that specialty crops are really important as well. When you think about pears in this valley, it's 32,000 tons of pears are grown annually. In my hometown of Hood River, we grow about 160,000 tons of pears, so it's a big part of our industry. It's important that our fruit and vegetable producers have the scientific tools they need to be competitive in a world market. And that's why this Farm Bill reauthorizes and provides strong support for competitive specialty crop research grants that have proven a record of a high return on investment, especially for Oregon crops. These crops aren't static either, especially here in the Rogue Valley and our orchards. They need replanting over time with disease-free root stock to continue their viability. Farm Bill renews the Clean Plant Network, which helps ensure there's a strong supply of certified disease-free stock for planting. Now look, the likelihood of severe drought this summer makes safety net programs like the Farm Bill even more important. We all know, just looking around at the hills and the mountains, there isn't the snowpack, there hasn't been the moisture, and we face perhaps record drought. To ensure that ranchers are impacted by drought and fire over the last 2 years and into the future are not put out of business, this bill permanently reauthorizes the livestock disaster programs and makes it retroactive to 2012. Now, why is that important? If you recall the Berry Point fire down out of Lakeview and the cattle that were burned in that fire, and the 1 million acres plus that burned that year alone across our district clear on out into Jordan Valley, those livestock producers lost many head of cattle, they lost their fences, they lost their grazing areas, and the prior Farm Bill had not fully authorized the livestock program for its duration. It expired a year earlier. So they were eligible for help and they didn't get it. This Farm Bill gives them that help and looks backwards to 2012 so that they'll get that disaster relief that they were due. For our wheat growers and other commodity crop producers, the legislation maintains and builds upon a strong crop insurance program so that the risk is shared. Remember, when it comes to wheat, it's a huge export crop for Oregon. 90% of what we grow in terms of wheat is exported, and it amounts to $472 million in economic value for our state and especially for our district. This bill provides some regulatory relief that's really important to our farmers and ranchers, but also to our foresters. But first, when it comes to the Food and Drug Administration's new rules on water quality, from onions to pears, these new rules could spell real devastation to our growers, and for no good food safety reason. As you know, I got the FDA to come out to Nissa on the east side of our district to actually see how onions are grown and to learn that the rules they were proposing did not work in the farms that they were seeking to regulate. As a result of that action, they have now backed off of those rules and are going to take another attempt to get it right. So this farm bill requires the FDA conduct a thorough analysis on the economic impact of any proposed food safety rules. And it requires FDA to publish the science used in developing new standards. These are important provisions, not in the law prior, that are in the law today. This helps hold the agency accountable and make sure that common sense is not lost. The bill has some good forestry provisions and provides some regulatory relief from the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and when it comes to regulating forest roads. You see, the EPA wants to treat forest roads like they're a sewer pipe and require permits and all kinds of new regulations. We back that off, and the provision codifies what's already been general practice and prevents outside groups from engaging in litigation to force the EPA to regulate something that it should not be regulating. Now, when it comes to bark beetle and other diseases in our forests, they continue to spread not only across our federal forest lands, but also our state, county, and private forest lands, and in large measure in the federal area because of lack of management. It's a huge issue all across our United States, the Black Hills of South Dakota, in Colorado, and in southern eastern Oregon as well. This bill takes some provisions out of the bipartisan Healthy Forest Restoration Act, which I helped write a number of years ago, and extends them to portions of our forests that are at highest risk of fire because of disease or pest. We still need the Senate to act on our bipartisan forestry legislation that would allow us to get out and actively manage our forests, create jobs, and generate revenue for our communities, and reduce the threat of fire through active management. That bill is in the Senate, and once again, I hope they'll take it up and act on it soon. Finally, county governments across Oregon and the West face significant uncertainty in their revenues due to large percentages of land being locked up by the federal government. The Farm Bill helps deal with this by including a one-year, fully funded payment in lieu of taxes. This is the federal government's property tax bill, if you will, to the local governments. Since their lands are not on our tax rolls, the federal government should at a minimum pay the tax, which is an equivalent to payment in lieu of taxes. That's a fully funded PILT payment for 1 year. Then it will go into the regular appropriations process where it used to be in the past. So these are small steps but important steps forward. They provide a safety net for our farmers and ranchers who are competing in a global market, and I think in the end gives them the certainty they need to be able to plant our food, raise our crops, work in our forests, and do the things that we rely upon so much for our way of life here in Oregon and across the United States.